I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, December 1st. A lot to talk about this morning. We want to take a quick look at a possible stratospheric warming event coming up later on in the month of December. We want to take a look around the northern hemisphere right now also to see where it's been extremely cold in some spots. At the same time, it's warmer than normal across much of the western part of the nation, and a very interesting weather pattern setting up for the northeastern part of the nation for next week, specifically the middle part of next week. Looks like a strong cold front will usher in another very cold air mass into the northeastern part of the nation early next week, and then 2 or 3 days later, a system is likely to bring some frozen precipitation to at least parts of the northeastern part of the nation. Again, we're talking about maybe a week from now, the middle of next week. First, let's just take a quick look here at a 10-day forecast map of the 10 millibar temperatures. Now, this is a kind of a top-down view here where the North Pole is right in this region right here. We're looking, again, a top-down view. The U.S. is right over here, and typically you have a cold polar vortex sitting right over or near the North Pole, but certainly this time of the year you can have some disruptions in that polar vortex, maybe a stratospheric warming event where a warmer air mass pushes into the polar regions in the upper part of the atmosphere. And again, this is a 10 millibar temperature forecast for 10 days from now. Notice right here, a little bit of a warm-up showing up here, 10-day forecast. Again, this is from a GFS model run. Temperatures here on the warmer side. Still very cold, but a warm-up here relative to normal near the North Pole. And typically, when the polar vortex is displaced, it can result in some cold air masses moving from the high latitudes to the middle latitudes. Doesn't mean it'll result in cold air outbreaks for the eastern U.S. Oftentimes the displacement leads to cold air outbreaks into the central or the western U.S., but it's certainly something to watch for. And again, some initial signs here of a stratospheric warming event later on in the month of December. We'll certainly monitor that over the next several days. Well, let's look at another kind of a top-down view, in this case of the northern hemisphere, and we're looking at the current 850 millibar temperature anomalies. And just want to point out two or three areas of interest. First of all, over here in Europe, Scandinavia, right here, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, it's been extremely cold, and not just typical cold for this time of the year, but some intense cold that has resulted in low temperatures of 35 degrees below zero, for example, in Sweden. A couple of mornings ago, the lowest reading in all of Scandinavia since 1980. So some very unusual cold and intense cold in that part of the northern hemisphere. Just to orient yourself, this is Portugal and Spain, France, and again, these are the Scandinavian countries. And we've talked a lot about Alaska. They've been suffering through an intense cold period that may very well result in the coldest month of November in many spots. The numbers are now coming in as we begin the new month of December, but very, very cold, abnormally cold for Alaska. They too are typically cold this time of the year, but we're talking about some 15 to 20 degrees colder than normal on a sustained basis. Yesterday morning there was a spot in northern Alaska that bottomed out at 50 degrees below zero. Meanwhile, look at this. In the western part of the U.S., a lot of warmer than normal conditions. Kind of a mixed bag in the mid-Atlantic region, kind of going back and forth between above normal, below normal. Yesterday was below normal temperatures, for example, in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. Tomorrow will be way above normal with high temperatures approaching the 60-degree mark in places like D.C. and well up in the 50s, Philly and New York City. But again, out in the western part of the nation, a lot of warmer than normal conditions. Well, let's now get back to the continental U.S. and take a look at the 10-day forecast map from last night's operational run of the GFS for total snowfall, again, over the next 10 days. First of all, in the northeastern part of the nation, there is an interesting setup developing for about a week from now, the middle of next week. We'll get into that over the next couple of minutes. This forecast map goes through much of next week into the following weekend. Notice also a continuation of some extreme snow. 72 inches depicted here on the GFS for the next 10 days, just inland, southwestern Canada, British Columbia, and those higher elevations. The coastal regions continue to get bombarded with heavy rainfall, but again, tremendous snowfall amounts. Even some snow showing up now in the Colorado Rockies over the next 10 days or so. It's been missing so far this winter season, but again, a decent snow pack coming over the next 10 days across the northern half of the U.S. Well, let's now walk through the forecast maps of the Zero-Z operational GFS going forward for the next several days. We want to certainly focus in on the possibilities that are setting up for next week in the northeastern part of the nation. First of all, today, a chilly day in the Mid-Atlantic region. You see a little bit above normal down south of the Mason-Dixon line. As we start the day, a little bit below normal up to the north, but a big blob of warmer than normal conditions out across the western half of the nation. Now watch what happens as we go forward. Tomorrow will turn into a much milder day in the I-95 corridor region. Again, DC could hit 60 degrees tomorrow afternoon. The winds will be very strong on Thursday, generally from a southwest to a westerly direction, and some of that will be a downsloping type of wind that comes down the Appalachian Mountains, and it could actually exacerbate the wind speeds. Could have some powerful winds, especially just in the foothills of the Appalachians later on tomorrow. But look at this warm stretch of air all the way from the west coast to the east coast on Thursday afternoon. The warm-up tends to be short-lived in the northeastern part of the nation. Indeed, it starts to turn colder on Friday. High pressure starts to build across southeastern Canada. Still relatively chilly over the upcoming week, and here we are now into Sunday morning right here. It gets a little bit milder on Sunday, but upstream there's another cold air mass starting to show up on the maps here across the northern plains by Sunday morning. And let's move forward here. And here's a key to the forecast for next week. A large, colder than normal air mass will drop out of Canada into the northern plains and push south and east. A strong cold front comes into the eastern states probably around Monday of next week. Certainly turns colder. Models tend to pull out that cold air mass pretty quickly, and I'm not sure it's going to happen this quickly. Notice here, just 48 hours after that cold frontal passage, some warmer than normal air, at least in the upper part of the atmosphere. We're looking at the 850 millibar level as the colder air retreats pretty quickly up to the north. And this will be a key part of the forecast for a week from now. How quick can that cold air actually retreat to the north? I tend to think the models generally retreat the cold air too quickly, especially in the lower levels of the atmosphere. And we'll talk about this throughout the winter season. Cold air is dense air, and it has trouble getting pushed away by warmer air advancing in the upper part of the atmosphere, at least if there's high pressure up to the north and east. And we'll take a look at that prospect shortly. Well, now let's take a look at the 500 millibar, the vorticity field. These are areas of spin in the upper part of the atmosphere, kind of an area of rotation, and that's where we look. Meteorologists tend to look there for finding areas of upward motion, which can lead to clouds and eventually precipitation. Here's one wave right now as we begin the day in the middle part of the nation, and it slides into the eastern U.S. on Thursday. It's really kind of associated with a warm frontal system that'll pass through from the south to the north in the overnight hours, pass through the Mid-Atlantic region, and that will usher in some milder air for Thursday. Again, kind of chilly today, but much milder tomorrow with a stiff wind showing up too. Again, could be some southwest to west winds that really intensify during the day on Thursday, especially just in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, as it'll be kind of a downsloping direction that sometimes increases the wind speed. Then we go into the end of the week, and some colder air starts to build up across southeastern Canada. It turns chillier again over the weekend. And here we go now through Sunday into Monday. This vigorous area of upper level energy is associated with that next cold air mass that drops into the northern plains, crosses the Great Lakes, and a strong cold front reaches the eastern U.S. early next week, probably the Monday time frame. And here we go. Shortly after that, a couple other players on the field. Notice here by Tuesday afternoon, here's one wave here, another wave way down here over Baja California, and then a third wave up across the south central part of Canada. It is this wave right in the midsection here that could push to the east by, let's say, next Wednesday and bring some precipitation with it. And again, very likely to be a retreating cold air mass, but enough cold air for some snow, interior sections of the Northeast, higher elevation sections of the Northeast, and perhaps even some ice just to the south and east of the snow band area. This is a week away, something we'll focus in on. And again, notice multiple waves of energy. That makes it a very complicated forecast for these computer forecast models. So nothing will be set in stone, probably not until the early part of next week. But this is a system that, again, will push in only a couple days after the arrival of another cold air mass in the northeastern part of the nation. Again, the cold front comes on Monday. This system could have an impact on Wednesday, and that's why I have a fear of some frozen precipitation, at least in parts of the mid-Atlantic and northeast U.S. Well, let's wrap up with the surface forecast from the 0Z GFS model run. Dry conditions today in the mid-Atlantic region, but later on tonight, kind of a warm frontal passage will bring some rain showers, maybe some snow showers across central and northeastern part of Pennsylvania, maybe a few flakes mixed in farther to the south and east of there, in southeastern or east central Pennsylvania as well. That warm front lifts on through, and then we get a kind of a trough axis showing up here by tomorrow afternoon in the Appalachian Mountains. And again, with this isobar pattern and a intensifying low across southeastern part of Canada, expect winds to really become a factor on Thursday, especially midday and afternoon hours out of the southwest or west. Could gust up to 30, 40, maybe even 50 miles per hour, especially in the foothills of the Appalachians. A mild day, well above normal for this time of the year. And then as colder air builds in across southeastern Canada, be kind of a downward trend in temperatures. Certainly the peak of this warm-up will be tomorrow afternoon, a little bit colder on Friday, a little bit colder again on Saturday. And then we start looking upstream by the time we get to Sunday and Monday. And here is the beginnings of that strong push of cold air by Sunday night. Right in here, see some snow up across the northern Great Lakes and a strong cold front cutting across the upper Midwest on Sunday night. It arrives in the eastern states on Monday. Be warm enough to be in the form of rain showers on Monday, but a very cold high pressure system behind it. This is again a Monday morning forecast map. So that strong cold front with a push of windy conditions, northwest winds behind it, late Monday night time frame, pushing cold air into the northeastern part of the nation, and then quickly on its doorsteps right here we get this area of precipitation moving in just about 48 hours later. And again, it could be cold enough for some ice, parts of the interior northeast, interior mid-Atlantic region, and certainly the threat is on the table for some accumulating snow inland, higher elevation locations of the northeastern part of the nation. Something we'll have to watch out for. The models could very well be retreating that cold air a little bit too quickly, especially in the lower part of the atmosphere. That could lead to more ice a little bit farther to the south and east than depicted here on last night's 0-0 run of the GFS. So something we'll monitor over the next several days, the threat for some frozen precipitation in the northeastern quadrant of the nation about a week from now, the middle part of next week. That's it for now. I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.